I'm going to basically, I'm going to say.
I say, you know what, let's just say with that. That's gonna give me more time to presentation.
Okay.
Give me the ordinance.
Really? Oh, wow.
Right. When I make copies of.
What I would just maybe pass those out. Our next meeting.
We're carrying out what's storing. The weather buoy out there indicated if there were 88-mile-an-hour winds. So we're trying to run. I'm actually, I grew up.
We only coach
Oh, maybe like in York.
Yeah, Carpenter Hills Road.
Yeah, yeah.
And so.
And then your teacher, right?
Yeah, I work in high school. When I came out here, you know, even to this day.
I know,
I'll take it where I live.
Yeah, they have one of their. But I'm like that, my family. You know,
So now.
Okay.
that's good. My family's from Chelsea. So no,
No, my family was in Chelsea. Right off the coast, too.
okay. So did our family farm, Waterloo Road?
That's what I
always have lots of fish.
Yeah, I did the whole road share. It's like-
Oh, did you? Yeah, the Chelsea Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chelsea, that was a big weekend. It was a big fire. It was a huge weekend at Chelsea Fair.
Don't let
It's
me
a different
forget.
town now.
I did really want to see this. Immigrants. Was this we got a lot of stuff. Right. Yeah, Chelsea. Chelsea's a different world. I did their master plan. Yeah, me too.
And I thought, okay, so
The city or
the city, yeah, he said, so I don't. Show this. It's like, yeah, to Chelsea. So, yeah, yeah. It is. I did their work, I did the master plan. I did the street or four. A year later, it's called John Eater is only. It's that every single one of these guys are experts. Every 47 committees from every kind. And like you said, it's all paid up.
The one lady was there today that I was talking to, I smoked the cigarettes. Was her name, not, what was her name, Pam? Yeah.
I know that, yeah. Yeah, so.
That was the lady I was talking to. And I, what was her position?
So they bought it.
I enjoyed visiting with her. We stood back there and talked for a while.
Everybody in the township. So I'm moving down to South Park Township. I'm on septic. All of a sudden I got like 4 mills on the property tax, our sewer. But I use septic.
Why didn't it ever use that like that?
I think it's.
Right, there's a mobile home park proposed, and you're right, there's a lot of areas which don't have, so I think it was around the recession.
And it was an old.
Yeah, it's a different. Now Manchester's trying to become a city too.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, so they're going through that
I
process.
meant to look up.
I don't want to go through that. I don't want to go through that.
That's my guard. It's my guard.
Well, we're starting at 6. We're starting at 6. We're starting at 6:30.
Similar things at work.
Okay, no problem.
For 9 months.
Well,
The language is pretty.
I'd like to call to order the Milan Township Planning Commission special meeting for May 24th, 2022. This is 6:03. First order of business is pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hank said that he probably will not be here tonight. Yes, conflict with this family. And Bob is on that. Okay, I handed out, I sent you guys the meeting minutes from May 10th. I also handed it out to you. Corrections. May 24th, 2022.
So.
Motion to approve the May 10th meeting minutes. Rebecca, okay. We have to second, all in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. We have any correspondence? Bob's not here, so we can circle back. Over the correspondence, Bob and I, as well as Kevin and Barb Collins, we all went to Lapeer this morning and looked at the solar farm that's up at Lapeer. And BTE, which runs it and owns it, gave us a tour, and the city what's it, manager from Lapeer stopped by, and he told us all about their experience with the solar farm. And so we were there for about 2 hours, and we came back. So it was a very nice day for now. And so Kevin, are you going to post that video that you took, or?
Yeah,
Okay, Kevin
well,
posted a video of a city manager talking.
yeah,
And.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway. Their project is about 1/3 the size of ours. They're a 50 megawatt solar farm in two separate locations. Combined, they're 50 megawatts, where ours is slated to be 150.
I think, isn't there a proposal for another much larger facility up near the pier?
I think you mentioned it, that there was another one. Possibly.
Pier County project. It developed, I've seen the story.
So, okay, I'd like to open the floor to public comments. Anybody have any questions or issues or comments? Okay,
I do.
oh, see, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yes, Sharon.
I'm here. Yes, I was just wondering if you're still taking suggestions, because I really.
Always.
Okay, because I really think you need to. look
I'm
at-
always open to suggestions.
Okay, this is a tricky question, the suggestions, but I think you really need to look into the glare, and I think they need to have a report or some kind of engineer really test the glare. Now, another thing is that if you have black panel, doesn't that absorb the heat, and doesn't that, I shouldn't say absorb the heat, it's gonna be hotter. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that it's going to take the moisture, which is climate control. This is where under climate, whatever it's called, climate control thing, climate change. So is that going to bring in drier air? Because as we know, when we plant corn, every stalk has moisture. So when you go ahead and put panels out that are flat, that's going to absorb, or it's going to absorb the moisture. We won't have the moisture, I should say, because the corn produces moisture. So I just think that it needs to be researched pretty intensely, because I think it will change our climate around here because of the majority, or how big it's, it is. So just something to think.
Well, the black panels absorb sunlight, yes.
Correct, but the
And-
heat
and-
that
and
it comes
just a minute,
off of
yes.
it.
Well, and because of that, the panels do heat up. How hot they get, I don't have any information on. But I believe that from what I do have ascertained is that they are, you can put your hand on them without putting it.
You could, but we're talking thousands.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying in
So,
terms of,
I
in
think
terms of
somebody,
that.
an engineer, somebody that's really educated in the climate part should come out and really test to see. And then I still think that we should look at a power agreement and making sure, because as of right now, DTE doesn't need any of this. So,
Contrary.
I got it on my phone right now.
According to a article in a newspaper this morning,
I can give you-
Michigan is slated to have rolling blackouts this summer because they are closing down power plants and renewable energy projects are not online yet sufficiently to take up the slack. And so they're projecting rolling blackouts in Michigan for this year.
Can I?
Now, yes.
So with that being said, that's wrong. Michigan supplies 15 other states. These other states that are going out, that are farther, they will need more electricity, and it will be a plan. If it will be planned if we need a blackout or rollout or whatever you want to call it. So in other words, that we have, the DTE person said, we have more than enough. More than enough. So we don't need this solar stuff, and plus they have a new gas, what is it, the natural gas, thank you, that is going to be starting this month sometime, which will probably be pretty soon. So with that being said, I feel like we don't really need it.
Well, that may be, we may not
But
need
that's my opinion.
right, we may not need it, but on the other hand, it's whether the state of Michigan or DTE needs additional electricity generation is really not our purview or our responsibility to ascertain, because It's sort of like this. A farmer decides to grow corn. We got tons of corn in the Michigan and the United States. We don't need any more corn. So does that mean that he should not grow his corn? No, because he wants to grow the corn. You know, that's his business. DTE wants, or Apex decides that, wants to build a solar farm and provide electricity to DTE. If it's an economical situation for them, and it's not our responsibility or purview to basically say that no, that we shouldn't do that because first in our infinite wisdom, we decide that it's not a necessary commodity. Now, that's my opinion, and that's up to the township board to decide what that would be their.
So just do your research, then that's all.
Yes,
that matters.
and I'm not disagreeing that DTE probably has plenty of capacity
Thank you.
and generation. That they're selling it out to other neighboring states. And what I said about the blackouts, that was from a newspaper article that I read this morning. Yes.
It was on the news 2 days ago.
Okay.
Vice President DT said there will be rolling blackouts, but not in Michigan.
Not in the southeastern part of it.
Well, where they feed Michigan.
Right, the
Consumers,
article,
I don't-
the article I read, what mentioned about it, I think it was Central. Yes,
I guess a point of order, I think, are we on public hearing or what?
Public comment.
Public comment.
or discussion.
Let's comment
So
on
I guess from a public, none of us are experts
Right.
and, on this, and depending on the report, I do this, on the regular, and I will tell you that the reports contradict themselves all over the place.
Okay.
Public Service Commission has clear reports, but clear as mud for the general person to read related to what's available and what's not available, and a lot of the stuff is projections, so.
And that's another reason why this is not consideration of whether it's needed or not. in
Well,
terms
I don't
of-
actually agree with that, but I do think that it's very difficult to get a clear answer.
I don't disagree. I totally agree with you. Yes, John.
I just, and I know I'm new here, and I want to be respectful to the planning commission and the residents as much as possible, but I've been here a couple meetings, and we have a job to do as a planning commission, as a board, and I'm not sure how the meetings have run in the past or anything like that, and I'm just giving you my 2 cents, and I'm working for you, but to have these conversations between the planning commission and residents, and maybe this is a regular thing, is a problem. And I say it's a problem because we can't move forward with what our charge is. And that's something in the master plan and the ordinance, and certainly we want input from our residents. And they have been, and I've noticed significant input to us, but and I agree with Commissioner, I'm sorry, your last name. Rebecca, with Rebecca, that, debating the needs or not of the needs of solar energy is not Milan Township's role.
Right.
Our role is two things. We cannot be exclusionary. So we can't say we don't want solar energy. Like I said at our last meeting, the only thing we can say that about is marijuana. So we have to have language in our ordinance that regulates solar power, accessory uses and large scale. Now, however that comes about, it comes about. But we need to, tonight, we're gonna, I think, go over the master plan comments. Move forward with that. And I apologize, I was out of town for a week, so I wasn't able to get to what I needed to get to, but Alyssa from my office did some work. Made some changes to the zoning ordinance text to move that forward. Now, I wouldn't think we want to look at that tonight because you just got it, but at our next meeting, certainly we can look at those additions on drain fields and escrows and decommissioning and some of the changes we made. But again, we can't say as a township, we don't want solar. We have to write language that allows it. And I think we get bogged down with saying we don't want it, or there's not a need for it, or whatever the case may be, and we can't get into a place once a project is proposed that says, you're taking away my view. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of, if and when we have a public hearing, we have to base these things on the law. The law is gonna say, there is nothing that says you have to develop, if someone has a farm field, you can't say you're taking away the view. Now, we can address that with screening and buffering and a variety of other things, but there's just a lot of things. And tomorrow night I have a meeting with a 300-acre solar farm up in Leicester. It's a site plan review. I expect it to be reasonable, and I think that it will be approved. But again, that's what our role is to write language. If and when a project is proposed, they have to meet that language, and we have a lot of flexibility as a township to say, okay, we want more screening here because it's special use. We have more screening here. We want setbacks here because it's near our homes. But again, and I don't want to sound redundant, but we just can't say, no, we don't want any solar farm. So I think that is off the table. It has to be off the table. But the ordinance language that we write, master plan language that we write, certainly can be detailed and restricted.
Any other comments? Yes.
Two quick questions for you. When you made your field trip today, did you talk to any of the residents in the area?
No.
Okay, is there any houses around that solar farm?
There was one.
Their houses all around on the one side. It's in the city.
Yeah.
They addressed that.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
Okay, you didn't talk to no residents?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I have a follow-up question, John? In regards to, you mentioned a couple of times, that we have to allow for solar. Can we get just, and we don't need to do it tonight, go through it tonight. Can we get kind of I don't know, a description or a memo or something that outlines why or and references what state guidelines or state
Sure.
law?
Yeah,
Because I think that's helpful, one, for the residents to know, and it's interesting that you say that, because I don't think we've communicated it that succinctly as you just did, and so I think that would be helpful for parameter.
of course, and I think that's a good idea, and I'll use. There's all kinds of land uses out there that we may or may not want, and those can include. And I don't want to compare. I don't want to compare an adult use to a solar farm because it's not a good comparison. But we have to allow for adult uses in a community, and the way we do that is say, okay, most of us don't like that use, but we have to allow it in our zoning ordinance. But we will say it has to be in an industrial district, or it has to be 2,000 feet from a church, or it has to be 2,000 feet from a school, bars, something like that. Or mobile home parks. I mean, this is a different and an unusual use, but it is a use. It's a land use, and it has to be, and it has to be regulated in our ordinances to some extent, and that's what we're doing. And to say we just don't want it is a problem legally. And I'm not an attorney, but I know that your attorney would support that and say, no, we can't be, and use the term exclusion. We can't exclude this use just because we don't want it, or we don't trust it, or it's unsafe, or it'll pollute the groundwater, or whatever information's out there, which may or may not be true. We just can't do that because we're going to lose every single time in court. So I agree with you that I can pull from the Zoning Enabling Act, show you that, and give you an idea of why that's important.
Yes. Yes, sir.
When you were up at Lapeer today, isn't that solar field got a subdivision almost all the way around it?
Yes, there is extensive subdivisions.
And if we speak about something, I mean, here's the thing too, is that, and I know I'm being redundant, but people own property and they have the right to develop it. And so if we have in our ordinance, which we do, the right to develop single-family site condominiums or subdivisions or PUDs, those kind of more intense residential developments, we have to allow that if they meet the ordinance standards. Now, everybody around that farm field that they were used to looking at it for 30, 40 years, they're gonna pack this township hall and say, you know what, I don't want 30, 40 houses on that property. I like looking at the crops growing. I moved here because of the rural character. Well, I get that and I appreciate that, but it's not your property and our ordinance allows residential development on this and they can put 40 homes. And so I guess that's an issue that as commissioners and the board, they have to deal with. And Milan Township, as they grow, or if they want to grow, how much they want to grow, we have to work at that too. I mean, we have to look at land preservation and rural character and ag preservation. And that's another discussion. But again, we just can't stop development. We can slow it down and we can regulate it and provide tools, and I can help you with those tools to limit it, but we don't, I know I keep coming back, we just don't want to get caught up with, hey, we don't want it anywhere. We've got to do our job and regulate.
Thank you. Any other questions before I? Last time I was handed this set of concerns, and I had read some other concerns last time, so I wanted to finish up with these. And one was a concern with fire. Panels should always be considered as having maximum voltage and a potential electrical hazard. Nests from birds and small animals may cause fires. Fires on site may place firefighters at risk and other risks of electrocution. Milan Fire Department and Dundee also would need specific training or information related to solar panels. I totally agree in terms of that they need to be consulted and brought up, on board for the project. Decommissioning, during decommissioning, all solar project pipes and wiring should be removed above and below ground. That is already in the ordinance. Setbacks, the township solar ordinance will have specific setbacks. The apex friendly neighbor agreement indicates that the neighbor can change these setbacks. This should not be allowed, but the township solar ordinance should be the rule. That I disagree in terms of the setbacks that are referenced in the ordinance are the minimum setbacks. If the neighbors or people want larger setbacks, that's something that can be negotiated with the board, with the site plan and with Apex. So, Apex can always provide larger setbacks if they deem that would be a good idea. Like I said, the ordinance has specific minimum setbacks. So you can always have larger setbacks.
John, can I maybe just ask a request that?
Sure.
I think that as we're contemplating this and we're going through all these individual things, us providing our individual kind of viewpoints before we bring it back, sometimes it gives the appearance that all of us feel that particular way. And so
No, I understand, but
I
like
just want
I
to,
read some of these earlier, and I wanted, these are the last ones that I've received.
no, I get
And I
that.
just wanted to make sure that I didn't slight anybody by not being their concerns.
But I have concerns when we give our opinions in the middle of reading
Oh, I see
other
what you're saying.
people's testimony. I think that is something.
But in terms of.
It invalidates it, and I want to provide as
Well, no, I
much
was just-
validation as possible
I was
until we get back to
No, I was just explaining how things could be more to their liking rather than less.
Okay.
So, and then the last one she said was solar panels should be allowed on industrial land only and certainly not on PA 160. So those, fortunately, most of all of these have been previously presented to me by other people. So, okay, now to the order of business. Last time I presented a proposed vision statement for the master plan, and I have handed out a marked up copy of the vision statement, and I have extra copies here. If Yes, you should have it looks like this. No, I gave it to you just now.
I know.
No. That's fine. Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I still have extra copies. What I did is, I and Lisa from John's assistant has marked up the first paragraph of the vision statement. And by the way, here I have extra copies. Do you want to have these out? Sure. Thank you. And for us to consider, because I was not happy with the first paragraph. The rest of the vision statement, the strategies and so forth is unchanged. Okay, this is basically in chapter 4, alternative energy goals. Rural communities can diversify and expand their economies by harnessing clean energy sources while generating affordable, sustainable power. And you can see where it's crossed out. At an increasing rate, residents and business owners are turning to green energy sources for environmental conservation and expanding fiscal profits. Not only are site-serving technologies advancing, but large-scale commercial installers and providers are actively seeking locations in Southeast Michigan, where land has yet to be developed. Using a combination of renewable energy options can help meet local government goals, especially in regions where availability and quality of renewable resources vary. With this rapid growth in new technologies, it is vital to establish cleaner alternative energy systems that will not only protect natural resources, but also as a means to provide economic stability for future generations to come. During the master plan process, township officials have expressed interest in renewable energy to prepare for future needs. Building facilities and infrastructure on properties in a way which is sensitive to neighbors and the natural environment can foster the growth of alternative energy sources for residential and commercial use. So that is basically our goal.
So what I'll,
Yes, John.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what I'll say is, again, for not only for our residents here and also commissioners, so we're drafting language for the master plan. So the master plan is kind of our, like I said, our last meeting is kind of our broad brush stroke of what we want to do in Milan Township. And all this is saying is that we as a township support alternative energy, renewable energy options and alternatives in the future. And it's a big goal, and I think that we could all agree that we think that's a good goal, whether you believe in climate change or whatever. Hey, having a mixture and a variety of options for energy is a good thing. Now, it goes on to talk about that while we support that and encourage it, we also want to take into consideration kind of, we're at 35,000 feet with the goal. We also want to kind of narrow down to my township goal is that while we support this, we also want to take into consideration our neighborhoods and our rural character and those kinds of things. So kind of winnow that down with that last paragraph to say, okay, while we support and encourage it, we also feel that when and if these uses are allowed in the township, we want to be careful on where they are and how they're developed. So I think that's what, this isn't saying that, hey, we're going to allow this to happen everywhere. This is just allowing us in our master plan to craft ordinance language to say, okay, we get it, we support it, but you got to follow these rules. So that's kind of where we're going here. We're not saying right now that you can put it anywhere in my own township, but we are saying we support it at the right locations.
Correct. the,
John, I'm just trying to get a sense of, thanks, or John. What page, so based on,
this would be about.
why are we starting at this versus, so is this,
That paragraph. That's that paragraph rewritten.
so why did we take out environmental and sustainability?
Because it's alternative energy goal is basically what we're talking about. We're talking
Why
about-
did we take out environmental and sustainability and go back to the question? Are we taking out? Are we replacing this F with alternative energy?
Yes. That's one.
And it's not fair, I think, Rebecca, to you, I mean, that you got this evening and you're reviewing it now, but this really breaks it down into a specific goal for alternative energy, along with all our other goals in the master.
I guess I would, my first reaction to it is that, sorry. My first reaction is that I wouldn't wanna, environmental and sustainability are a really big umbrella, and by removing it, and I realized that originally, the original master plan had environmental and sustainability, and that was focused on solar and wind. But there's a lot in this original goal that I think is worth retaining.
Well, that's why we're here to discuss it.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so that's the feedback I'm providing. So I guess that would be my first, so I think that it will be maybe worthwhile of having environmental and sustainability as the original map. And then doing maybe 2 goals and 2 objectives. You could do an alternative energy goal and then an overall environmental and sustainability goal. Because right now, I think just in general, the environmental and sustainability umbrella is pretty wide, and it isn't something that is just based off of energy development or alternative energies. There's land, wind, rain, all kinds of different things for environmental. So that would be my first reaction. So I hate to add to our list of things to do, but our goal, maybe we have to just add a whole new goal as far as environmental sustainability.
Certainly. I mean, that's,
Because I like the embrace, where was this embrace? Oh, here, it's the objective. Okay. This is not,
I mean, maybe Rebecca, is that we keep, like you said, F as environmental sustainability. Okay, and then maybe we add some of this language that we've crafted to the renewable energy facilities section of page 88, which specifically talks about solar farms and what they do. Does that make sense?
that's on page 88.
Yeah, 88, 89, renewable energy facilities.
right, so, next page. So,
Oh, here, okay.
you see that?
Yeah.
But I agree. I think I like the idea of that title, environmental sustainability. And
Because under environmental, sorry, John.
like,
Under environmental and
Go ahead.
sustainability, it kind of gets to what we had already talked about. We talk about all the other different services that are emerging, and whether it's garbage dumps or whether it's funeral or cemeteries, there's some serious issues related to environmental and sustainability there, and then, with watersheds, probably gonna be a lot of regulatory issues coming down, like.
So maybe we keep, so we'll keep F as environmental sustainability. And then some of these need to change, some of these strategies, because they're clearly specifically related to solar energy, and I don't think that's the idea. So,
Yeah.
Environmental and sustainability has a lot
I
more to
think
do
just-
than just solar.
Yeah, I think environmental and sustainability should probably be, like just starting over, like getting some other examples.
Mhm.
Some other environmental sustainability goals and objectives.
Right, I agree with that.
So when, this is a question for Mr. Ennis, then, is it NOs or NS?
That's, you go to Greece and Enos, you go to
Okay,
Chelsea, it's Enos.
what do I, so many.
Enos is fine, that's right, they know, just go with Enos.
So when, I guess I'm kind of, I'm trying to, how to react to some of this. And in trying to take the tone of the overall master plan. Do you make it kind of, is the point of the master plan to make kind of like blanket public policy statements, or is it kind of to give like a picture of that moment in time, like this is 2020, this is kind of.
I think it's the first one. I think it's who we want to be, and whether it's, and I know we have to update our master plan every 5 years, but the master plan is really a long range tool. And so this language and these goals and these policies, while not set in stone, give you direction on amending the ordinance or making decisions on specific land uses. Now, again, this is a guide, the master plan is a guide. You create zoning language, which becomes law based on what we're laying out here. So if we're talking about environmental and sustainability, and you were talking about cemeteries and other options or landfills or whatever the case may be, and those become important, those are important issues, that then we get into the ordinance and we make that an important issue by making it law and updating that.
The first 3 chapters of the master plan basically explains who we are today. And that's the census data, demographic data, the description of the township and the condition of the township. Then chapter 4 gets into the goals and objectives. And then chapter 5 gets into strategies.
Well, then, on that first sentence, wherever we end up putting alternative energy goals, can diversify and expand. I guess the way I would put it differently, because it's not the rural community that's harnessing clean energy. It's the rural community that is committing to this as a land use and being a part of the ecosystem. We're not harnessing the energy. The people that have the land aren't harnessing the energy. I mean, well, the more I say that, I guess if you were to do your own project and sell it back to the company. Anyway, I think it's more of
What the rural community is doing is diversifying and expanding their economy. And they're doing that by harnessing clean energy sources.
they're doing it by renting out their land for renewable energy sources. They're not generating the power I mean, I think it's a
Well,
prepositional phrase preference, I guess.
Well, I think maybe supporting and encourage clean energy, that harnesses at the local level, but also shows that we support and encourage that.
But I really, so John, so the one thing that, I haven't, communicated to you, but I think I've communicated quite a bit to the public and at this meeting is just in general, how, rural communities, rural communities are a part of what is going to be this emerging, energy generation, this emerging use because of the fact that it's just simply easier to put solar out in the middle of the field. And so the issue becomes is what is the message that we're sending as a community that actually, I haven't talked about this in so long, I'm forgetting all of my talking points, but that if we're gonna be generating, if the land that is being utilized in our local communities, and I say this overall for all rural townships and local communities, if this land is going to be utilized for that, there needs to be some community benefit for that, and a community benefit that goes beyond, donating to the local foundation. There needs to be some kind of reckoning in local communities that is a clear message that if Ann Arbor, you want your alternative energy, you want your green, but you're not willing to give up your land, because I was the one that had listened to Ann Arbor freak out about 3 solar panels on Plymouth Road for like 6 months because it was going to face the Speedway gas station and it's so offensive. I'm not kidding. I mean,
No,
to me,
we do work right now, right? Get it.
it is so unbelievably offensive. And if people don't get it, that if they're the ones that want the green energy and then they're the ones that are driving up north and they're just like, oh, I can't believe all of these win. Well, where the heck do you think it came from? Your interest in having alternative energy. And I say that as a blanket statement. And I don't mean to, put particular communities into a bucket, but people need to understand if they're going to be pushing for overall public policy efforts, it has a trickle down effect into the rural communities, and it always has. And so to me, diversifying and expanding our economies doesn't begin to say the level of the resource that rural communities, and particularly this community, is providing. So that's more what I'm getting at. I think we're diversifying the economy for a few people, or getting a few more tax dollars, but it doesn't put an arrow out there or a clear message that if there's going to be alternative energy in this township, that it needs to that it gets down to, whether it gets down to the property values. Anyways, I'm going on too long.
No, but I hear you. And what is this doing for Milan Township? If we allow this, what is it for Milan Township? Other options or alternatives for, besides the tax dollars for Milan Township? I don't know what those are. I mean, back in the day, it was, I'll use the example of cell towers. Same thing, cell towers go here. You ask everybody who uses a cell phone, they'll raise their hand, well, they go somewhere, it's easier to put it down in the rural area. They would allow for Nextel, if you remember that. Nextel, police, fire, residents would have much less bills for those things. I don't know if that's an option or alternative here, but I hear what you're saying. What if we're gonna have this language in here? What does this do for Milan Township? Because this is Milan Township master plan. That's whose master plan it is. It's not Ann Arbor's or the cities or
But Monroe County, it's Milan Township.
So I don't know, Jeff, I don't have just because this is reading this for the first time, so
Right.
No, I hear you, and I don't have an answer for you either.
um,
Well, see, in this type of paragraph, um, it's generally generic, or I should say, very broad brush goals. And objectives and strategies are to get down to some specifics.
So I gotta push back, because I really don't think that what I just described is it is a broad brush goal. It is an overall statement to say, so rural communities, alternative energy.
Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding the community benefits. And yes, we want whatever we allow into the township, we want some community benefits. Unfortunately, not everything, not all uses provide community benefits. And we have to allow. But that's another issue. So. Yeah, and there are numerous, benefits that projects like this can provide. Increased taxes, diversification of income for different for the residents. Also, doing our part for green energy, climate change. As well as numerous other benefits. And so those are things that we can, allude to. Like I said, right now, this proposal, this is a proposal to get us thinking about exactly how we want to voice our vision. And I understand that we need to, each of us needs to take this and think about it and come back next time with some ideas. Which is obviously, it's unfair to throw this at you and say, okay, this is it.
So as we're processing this, are there other parts of the master plan? 'Cause we went through quite a bit last week or the week before. So would it just be G, potentially G and F?
Basically, my thought was that we need to add in the alternative energy section, vision statement, in order to provide a direction to whoever looks at it or reads it that, that Milan Township will entertain solar, solar energy, however, only up to a certain point within our township. And that's what the vision statement is to provide, is saying that, okay, it's a good idea, but only, let's not go overboard. Let's limit it to 10% of the farm.
So where would we put that? Would that be?
That would be,
objective?
yeah, that would be under renewable energy facilities, page 88, 89, which basically talks about what would the facilities look like. And part of that is that township establish a siting map, basically saying, okay, we have siting maps for commercial, we have siting maps currently in the master plan, siting maps for industrial area, siting map, which basically says, okay, our industrial area should be within, 1 mile of a expressway interchange on a major road. And same way with our commercial zones. So our solar farm siting map would be basically the same thing. It has criteria about, okay, where in the township would be a logical place to allow, depending on the requirements of solar farms. It doesn't have to be within half a mile of a substation or a thing, and so forth. And like I said, should not be wetlands or woodlands and areas of residential use. And that's also where we sit. Go ahead.
Low battery, please charge.
And that's also where we say, okay, we have 19,000 acres of farmland, cropland. Of the 22,000 acres that we have in this township, 19,600 and change are cropland. And so, 10% of that would be 2,000, roughly 2,000 acres.
Low battery, please charge.
And and that would, establish the upper limit of how much solar we would, say, allow in the township.
Where would that language present itself?
That's under.
Can I have an extra copy of that? Is that moved back here? Extra copy later?
No, I'm sorry. Let's see.
So John,
Yes.
the 19,000 acres, is that just A1? Or is that
I think that's
A2 also?
That's a two as well. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. Chapter five, yes, chapter six, is future land use. Yeah, this is, so we would put this under renewable energy facilities on the future land use. So we have, chapter 4 is goals and objectives. Chapter 5 is our future land use. Or what we intend for the future. And that's where we're saying, okay, only 10% of the township would be.
Those are just goals and
Right.
big picture.
Big pictures, right, exactly.
You could, and maybe know where you're going. Because again, this is a guide, you could even strengthen that by adding it to the zoning, which is law.
Well, I guess that's the point, it's kind of rattling around my head, is these are guides. I mean, we're not coming out and saying clean, green energy, wind, solar bad, clean, green, wind, solar good. We're saying it's here, we're gonna make a spot for it, like you mentioned, it's part by law. I mean, whether you're even in environmental warming or climate change, but it's gonna be addressed in the law. I mean, if this is just some kind of big guide and we're not taking a hard stance, we're just saying it's in our community, it will have a place in our community. I mean, I don't think any developer is gonna look at our mission statement and be like, oh, okay, well, I'll come here. No, they're gonna like jump right into the zoning, right? They wanna know what the laws are.
More times than not, they're gonna look right at the zoning ordinance, they're gonna look up the zoning ordinance online.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I can put a solar facility in Milan Township, but I have to do it like this, and then they go through this process, it's special use in this district. So I would think that we want to put it not only as a broad range support in the master plan, because if we ever get to a point of being in court, we can say, this is our master plan, we said it, and then we took our zoning, which is law, and we made it much more detailed and said, okay, this is how much we can have in Milan Township, and we have to keep track of that as a township, but it's right here. The development community, and more times than not, I mean, and are gonna look in the zoning ordinance before they look in the master plan. Courts are gonna look at the master plan more times than not, so if we make a decision on something, we may want to use master plan language as part of our resolution of support or not, but I think that the zoning ordinance is the key to regulating these type uses. And we certainly can get into, like I said at the last meeting, whether it's soils or districts or radii from one to another, or percentage, those are all options to regulate these uses. To say you can only have one within a 3-mile radius, or class 1 or 2 soil, or industrial, or ag 1 or ag 2 district, whatever you come up with. But again, that helps. It really helps guys like this when they come into Milan Township and say, all right, they're allowing it. They can only allow it here. We'll follow these rules. And if they follow the rules, they get approved. Okay. So what I would suggest doing, and what I will do is, in regards to some of the things I've heard tonight, is kind of revisit this master plan language. But also, I think we want to keep our eye on the prize, and that's the zoning. That
Right.
we got the order with I say the zoning order, the zoning language. And so I think we can do that concurrently. And I did, like I said, Mr. Chairman, we did add some changes. I don't want to go over this tonight, but I will also add some changes based on what I'm hearing tonight.
Sure. So,
Where exactly is the master plan? Sorry. On the website. Is it under, I thought it was under planning commission.
Yeah, I think so.
you want to look something up, because I heard-
Well, I just wanted to make sure that, zoning ordinance master plan, sorry, got it. Before we left tonight, that, we went through, so that way we can provide as best of feedback as possible, because I want to, and how we want to proceed, because I don't want to, not be prepared at the next meeting, or to give kind of, or have kind of some clear feedback, and not just on this alternative energy goal. So we then need to come up with objectives, I assume, and proposals. So I don't want to just, just darts on a board the next couple of weeks. And those objectives would include what you kind of outlined, correct? So it would be, we want this much on industrial land, or we would maximize, or however we want to say it.
Right.
This much on farmland, stuff like that would be in the objectives.
Yes.
Okay.
For example. Chapter 5 of the land use policies, and we have a section on residential land use. And then we describe existing conditions, opportunities. The residential land use policies. And for example, that we say limit residential uses areas which are suitable, develop residential areas as neighborhoods rather than as scattered developments. Type of density of residential development should be limited according to suitability of the area. And then future land use map. So we do that with the residential. And example, we have a map basically that shows areas generally suited for medium density residential. And the criteria is that residential should be within 1 mile of a public utility service area, within 1 mile of a highway interchange, within half a mile of a Class A road. And so then we go and we and then we have the same thing for map for low density residential. And that, the criteria for that is within half mile of public utility service area, areas surrounding the existing town of this area. And then we have a map on suitable for rural estate residential. And criteria soils suitable for septic, areas within half mile of a paved road, areas not prime ag. So we have a map that shows where those areas are. And then we talk about same thing under agricultural land use. And then we have open space, certain conservation land use. So basically describing where and what criteria it is for those areas. And then commercial land use. Example, commercial land use should be within a half mile of a highway interchange, within a half mile of paved primary road. So that gives us some criteria for where on the map we should put a commercial district, which means like right here, this area right around here, and right around Sanford Road. That's a plank road. And we have a section that talks about industrial. Light industrial should be within a half mile of highways, within a half mile of Class A road.
So what I would say is that we would add language, this 10% or however you want to handle it, to the ag districts or the ag parts of the township, that those percentages. So again, we add it to those ag sections, say we just add, say 10%, and then solidify that, but then, and I'll keep coming back to this, but then we go back in the ordinance and make it law. That's how we come to this conclusion that we support it. We're only gonna allow a little bit of areas in the township for at the right locations based on this process. Then we're, and I'm not an attorney, but I've been in enough court cases, then we're able to defend our decision on allowing it or not allowing it. And that's shutting the door on it, because based on my explanation earlier on exclusionary, we have to allow it, but we don't have to allow it everywhere. And if we say 10% or even 5%, or whatever percentage that the planning commission and the board come up with, then we have it in our ordinance and we regulate it. Now, if we say 2%, we're still gonna have this township hall filled up with neighbors saying, well, we support renewable energy, but we don't support it here. So just be prepared for that. But whatever language we come up with, we put it in the master plan, solidify it in the ordinance, and then we do it.
So yes, actually, that's a good idea. Put that percentages and description in the ag, because
That's where it's gonna go as.
Wait a second. I mean, we haven't decided where it's gonna go at all.
no, in general. The
So
ordinance right now allows an ag and industrial.
okay.
So we don't know, we don't have this, we're not gonna spitball and say, okay, we're gonna allow it in section 6, we're gonna say, okay, it's allowed anywhere in industrial. This is just kind of bring it anywhere in industrial district, because those are industrial. And it's less intensive than what could happen in industrial. And then 10% in ag, and that says, okay, of the 10%, whatever that acreage is, once we meet that standard, whether it's acreage or separation distances, then we're done, if and when that ever happens. And we're defensible and we're legal.
John, do you go back to, I think we asked this at the last meeting, but it's kind of our introductory meeting. I still can't find, through my very sophisticated Google searches, master plans that have a sample of solar in their master plan. I think Ann Arbor does, but it's full of a bunch of stuff that's not necessary. Well, maybe, I guess that's one perspective, but,
There's not a lot because it's such a new thing and you usually just update your master plans every 5 years. So there's not a lot, and I asked my partners and all the people that work with me, and they're looking for it, but they haven't been wise to it yet.
sorry to ask the crowd, but didn't you mention that, was it Coldwater or somebody down
It
in?
was in there. I don't think they're, I think John saw this language. They have it in their master plan, it's public hearing. I think they're still waiting on their like 60 days to hear back from the county. So it's not like their adopted plan yet. But that's the only one I've seen that actually, and they just did it last year, where they put it in their master.
Last week I was on a zoning training with Sarah Mills and MSU Extension, and there's about 20-ish, 25 different townships on there as well as EAs and stuff with me. And they kind of did an informal poll, and the vast majority said is they have very general language, like we support alternative energy in our township or something, alternative energy. But very seldom was it so prescriptive as 10%.
It is like John said, at least in our.
And the original words that I handed out last was from Ovid Township. And they have a map where they delineate where solar is used.
Big fan of copy and paste, that's what.
Yeah, me too. But I think that's the kind of maybe that's the process we go at. I mean, we could, this is long-term discussion, we could also go into percentage of residential, because, and that's what we're talking about, is rural character and open space, and this takes away from it. But, you know, our problem, our issue, our charge right now is large-scale solar energy systems, and so I think it's fair and reasonable and defensible to say that we only want a certain amount of it, and that's what we're gonna do.
So to reiterate, so I need clear direction. So for our assignment for 2 weeks from now, or whenever our next meeting is to come up with environmental and sustainability, kind of what we would like to see on that headline.
Okay.
And then have respond to your proposed goals here for alternative energy. And then start doing objectives and strategies for that, and kind of looking at what we would like to have in the objectives.
Yes.
And I'll rewrite this too, as based on comments.
Oh, okay. So we should just maybe then have a list of what we'd like to see in it, or?
If you want to send that to me, that'd be great, because then I can incorporate it into the. Or send it.
Bring it up and discuss it first, and I don't want to have, you know, I can send you a lot of stuff, and incorporate it. My colleagues don't agree with me, then back to square one.
However you want to handle it. I mean, if you want to send it to John as the chair and bring it to the next meeting, we can say we like this, this, and this, then I can feed it into the.
If you send it to me, then, and there's enough time for me, Send it out and consolidate it to whatever. Send it, send it out. Because we need to, decide exactly what we want, what. There's some ideas. Put them on the table.
And I know we have this somewhere and I could not find a breakdown of total amount of land. That like, so if we're looking at industrial, all of that, is that, oh, it's in the master plan?
It's in the master plan. And now it is old information, but it's.
We haven't acquired any new property.
Right. There's a lot of information.
I wonder if SEMCOG would have, they typically do have existing percentages of ag land in their.
This is from SEMCOG, based on 2000 aerial photograph.
Yeah, I'll check that. They've updated that.
It's a chart basically saying how much residential we have, single family residential and farmsteads. And how much secondary and mixed business we have in terms of acres, how much office space we have. Public institutional establishments, outdoor recreation, cemeteries.
Yeah, I get it. I guess, so from my, I think that I would like to kind of, if we're gonna get into saying, I'm just trying to be visual with a map. So you've got, with availability in commercial, industrial, and things like that, and then, and this is a question for John Ennis, is there, like, in these situations, can you say we like it on the southwest side? I mean, one of the things we've talked about is transmission lines, where this type of energy would make more sense.
Sure.
Can you say that, would you say that in the master plan and the ordinance, or would it just be?
You would probably just, again, to strengthen your case, is in both. You can say where you want that in the zoning ordinance, and a lot of communities say they only allow industrial uses on paved roads, access to paved roads. So you
need some criteria about why you're restricting it to a certain area. Essentially, like you just said, industrial area should be with paved roads.
Right. I mean, and so if we decide that, hey, we're only going to allow the southern tier, everybody in the northern tier is going to go, yeah. Everybody in the southern tier is going to be, where? But
Well,
so
that's my kind of like, I think there's going to be some pushback about that if you go on a percentage, or if there's, I'm just trying to anticipate how some public reaction, public concern.
well, I got to be honest with you that anywhere we propose it, this place will be filled with angry residents, and like I said, you will hear, I moved here for the view. That farm's been, I've been looking out at that farm field for 25 years. I agree with solar and renewable energy, but not here. I mean, those are the things you'll hear. And again, I appreciate and those concerns because they're valid, but we will have to stick to the ordinance once we get an ordinance.
And see, part of it, there are reasons why commercial industrial areas should be in certain locales in the township. Same thing with solar farms. They have certain criteria that they need to be able to make them viable project. 10 miles from a distribution line is not, economically feasible.
Well, we don't know that, by the way.
Well,
We don't.
okay, you don't know that, I'm just assuming. Yeah, but, 3 miles from the distribution center, power lines, connection center. It's might be fine. And so therefore, as you look at the map, okay, well, 10 miles out, obviously, that's an area we can say it shouldn't be. Now, right,
I guess I would push back on that. I don't, I just don't know. I just don't know on that one because
oh, no, we
and
have,
I think from a plan, from a master plan perspective, we don't know what I would say are future kind of energy development or distribution. I don't. I'd hate, I wouldn't want to get that prescriptive in a master plan. My instinct is to be more percentage wise or kind of.
percentage wise, we could pull a number, at whatever number we decide is a viable number. But what I'm trying to say is that, in terms of looking at the map and saying, okay, solar farms are good here, bad there, or whatever, needs to have some kind of logic behind it. That's all I'm trying to say. In other words, not that bad there because that's where I live, and I don't like it. Good here because that's where you live, and that's why it should be down here.
Yeah.
So those are not optional reasons. Maybe. So, okay. So I guess what we decided is that we're going to look at take this into consideration and see if we can come up with some environmental sustainability goals, and as well as John will, and we will for next time you can send them to me when we're pull them together, and I will send them on to John.
What page is that currently on?
Well,
What,
okay. It's the that these pages are not in the current master plan. I did send, I emailed it to you.
So she's not talking head.
Right.
So what are the pages that we're talking about? I emailed to you, and I can do it again if you want.
please do, just, I'm sure you have them, and I left all
That's fine.
my stuff, my briefcase.
Sure.
And these are all referencing the 2015 master plan. Is that correct?
Yes. Here, so, the first page, there were 4 pages. The first page I just gave it to you, markup. Here are the other 3 pages. And what I did is I just put those words into the existing master plan. That's why they have page numbers on it, even though page numbers, they only correspond to the general location. Okay. Any other questions?
About solar.
Nathan?
Oh,
Uh,
John, I feel like I just want to call you Planner John.
Yeah, that planner, because we get two, planner John, it's fine, I get that.
I'll just ignore it.
Wanted to go back to just I'm trying to, every time we come here, I think we're gonna get pretty far and just a lot, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to do still. And I think that we're butting up against summer and, I know there's, IATEX probably wants to get going and kind of have some kind of understanding of what we're gonna be doing. There's this debate about the moratorium that the planning or the township board currently has going. We kind of touched on it last meeting and I tried to write down some things that you said and I didn't do a very good job. So I just wanted to just touch base on them again. You had kind of, my question had been along the lines of, do we, as a township, we have this current ordinance. We know that the ordinance needs, and there's a general feeling that the ordinance needs to be updated. Because there's the moratorium and I think it expires in July or June. And then based on timeframes, are moratoriums, are they legally binding or how long can you keep a moratorium going?
Well, as long as you're making progress, I mean, that's, that you can keep it going. And I would suggest that the board should extend this. I don't know how long. I'm concerned, again, I'm new, I'm concerned that this master plan section could take a significant amount of time. And I say that because from what I'm hearing in terms of the discussion, and then also the bureaucracy of updating your master plan. So say we work on this guy for the next 2 months and we somehow come to an agreement that, hey, this language works for us. Then we have to go through the process of submitting to our neighbors, and then they have up to 60 days to review and comment. So now we're through the summer, we're still working on the master plan. Apex is still interested, and we have an ordinance that's out there, but not updated to the extent, or not updated to the extent that we're comfortable with. It's still limited. So I guess I want to think about how to skin this cat is that, I guess what I'm thinking is extend the moratorium, but also, you know, part and parcel focus on this ordinance as well, because eventually Marty or our township attorney is going to say, you know, you just can't say no forever, right? You just can't, you're making progress with the master plan, I get that. But again, there's 60 days, we're into the fall. And again, it's a guide in language. You haven't done what you want to do with your ordinance, because the ordinance is the most important part of this land use. We should focus on that too. So.
I guess, John, maybe, I think it just from the way I kind of plan or the way that would be helpful, and I think would be helpful to the public and I don't know if there's that we could maybe come up with a calendar of by July we would focus on these things. Even if our June 1st meeting is, or wait, what's our next?
14th.
June 14th meeting, we complete environmental and sustainability. We complete a review of alternative energy goals and develop 2, 3 objectives. Do you know what I mean? I guess that way we're kind of like planning it out, and we're not, and we say by July, start to develop ordinance. And I think, you know, now of course he's walked out of the room when I'm about to say it, but is to give, I mean, they're a contractor. You can't just, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the public when you hire a contractor to use them responsibly. And if we're gonna be here, like, and using them by the hour, which is not cheap, that there's a plan. Because I think we have a public responsibility to not overutilize a planner. So I would recommend we come up with some kind of calendar. And even if it's time, that it's a draft calendar or something.
Well, June 14th is our next regular meeting. And supposedly we'll have some new language for the master plan. Now, at that meeting, it'd be great if we could all say, hey, this looks great, there's a few minor word changes, and we're good to go. At that point, my thoughts is that once we have settled on or agreed to some vision statements and strategies, then we should run it past the township board, because they're the ones that have to basically approve it. We can be extremely happy and in total agreement with it, but if the board doesn't like something or doesn't agree with it, it's, we're dead in the water. That would then be their August.
So the goal would be to get a draft F and G and
Whatever, yes.
H, maybe or whatever, to the board by August.
Well, after our next meeting, which is after their meeting. Their meeting is on the 10th. Our meeting is on the 14th.
So you think to get it to them by July?
Oh, that's right, July. I skipped a one. Sorry. So they would have it in their July. If everything went smoothly.
Can I interrupt, Mr. Chairman? Did the board pass a resolution to be the adopting body for the master plan? So if not, the board would be, the planning commission would adopt this language. So, and we could talk about that process. Now, what the board has to do, say we craft this language the next month, and we're comfortable with it. What we then are required to do is send it to the board, and then the board would say, okay, this is okay for distribution. Then the board would distribute it to our neighbors, and then there's 60 days for the county and our neighbors to look at. Then it comes back, and the planning commission holds a public hearing and adopts it. So that's kind of the process for updating our master plan. Our zoning ordinance is a little different. We write language, we have a public hearing on the amended language, then we send it to the board, and then the board adopts zoning language. It doesn't have to go to anybody but the board. They can adopt it, they can make changes to it, they can do whatever they want. So that process will have to be followed. And so even if the board gets it, say in August, and they like it, we still have to distribute it to our neighbors until October or late September for them to come back and then hold a public hearing. But in the meantime, we can be working on this ordinance.
Right. Well, that was my goal, is that, get this language, get us in agreement with the language, get it to the board for them to basically bless it.
Right.
Or change it. And then, at that point, we can continue, we can move forward with the ordinance.
Right. Sure. Good. That'll work.
And master plan can, move forward with whatever is necessary for that. Because because besides this renewable energy, the master plan needs a lot of update. That is basically independent of this renewable
That's
energy. So, and I don't want to saddle us with all that stuff, before we get back to the ordinance. So yes, so that's, in terms of, that is my vision, is that if everything goes well, we could have some wordy speak.
That's pretty ambitious.
That's ambitious.
And it is summer. I mean, that's
Yeah, that's why I'm just saying it's summertime and we all have a variety of things on our schedule and so.
So, I mean, it might even be see, we'll have 2 meetings in July, and then we'll have, so I mean, you know, we could easily end up, we could still get our 2 meetings in June, I mean, and we could still get whatever language to them, or in the July. We might even have a 3rd meeting before, I'm not sure when our July meeting falls compared to that. But in any case, so we do have that flexibility. We have two, possibly 3 meetings to wordsmith this. So, okay, I think that we beat this horse to death.
So Jen, can you reiterate what's, I'm a teacher, what's my homework? Well, I mean, I've got some notes and thoughts here. We are going to specifically go back and look at the current F, G, H plus this.
Yeah, I gave you guys our master plan. I printed it out for you guys. It's also on the web. I would take a look at chapters 4 and 5 and see how, you know, what the structure is. And then, you know, start to pull together some references, some ideas, what, you know, sustainability, environmental and sustainability, you know, and the renewable energy. And in the light of what the words that I've provided. And again, it doesn't have to be extensive, you know, just something that's basically says, this is what our vision is. And, you know.
I have a question for the group. How adept are we at Google Docs?
Google Docs. What are Google Docs?
So I'm just wondering if we should put the master plan on Google Doc. And I think I can do it. My battery's dead, but
What are Google Docs?
and the reason
It's a document we can all have editing power over. We
yeah.
can all work on, it's a piece of paper we can all. Not piece of papers.
So it's on the-
It's electronic, so it'll,
It's on-
and
it's in the
it's
cloud?
set up,
Sure.
well, it could be wherever, yes, it's in the cloud. But we can then track comments within the commission, and it can be, because I just, this is really hard to kind of write this out. And then I think in general, your goals, your idea of getting this done in 2 months is exceedingly ambitious and very nice, but I'm just trying to think of efficient ways that we're gonna like be able to even do this. Yeah.
That's one of the
We,
reasons.
I have to work group stuff all the time, and nobody wants to sit around and try to debate. We literally we'll be saying exactly what just happened on that first sentence, but we'll be fighting over or debating about bioharnessing, what the hell that means. So I'm just telling you, I do this stuff all the time. And so from a technology standpoint, we may want to try to incorporate it. It's taken me years to do it. But it may be worth a lesson of just at least with our alternative energy goal, not the whole master plan, because that would be really ambitious for us as a group. But it tracks. John's comments are these. You can insert a comment. I can insert. Kevin, there's going to be some growing pains, but I can tell you.
I'm just
that
saying,
if we are
open meeting.
if we are literally sitting here going over this with a time frame, I mean, some people take 2 years to finish their master.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying, I believe that's gonna be a violation of the Open Meeting Act.
That'd be, I think that's a question would ask
You
Marty.
can't make a comment and have him see it in there without me seeing it and everybody else seeing it.
Well, it could be a situation where it's public. I think you can do
Well,
it publicly on the website.
That's my only concern. I think it's great with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just,
The only thing with the public is that it would
So you only.
yeah, you could do it.
you could look into it. It's,
You could all make suggestions, but you couldn't all say, oh no, I like yours. And go with that.
Well, that's
It's one thing just to throw them all on.
This is one of the reasons why initially, a few months ago, I wanted to, focus on the ordinance rather than through this. But that's, it's sad what's happening. Well, yes.
No, I get it, I'm just,
You're getting bogged down in
let's try a Google Doc. And if, from an open meetings perspective, I'm pretty sure that we can, at least, the one thing that's nice about Google Doc is that you can submit it as public information at the next meeting. So, and it'll specifically say who all said what and did what.
right. Okay, so I want to help us with that. Okay, now changing gears. We have a few minutes. Yeah, I had an extensive discussion with Elisa, which is John. Oops. Which is John's assistant planner. And regarding some of the suggestions, amendment suggestions for our ordinance. And she incorporated some of the things that we discussed in the document I just sent in our ordinance. So the underlined areas are obviously the things that she has added to the ordinance or modified. And so it's something that I basically, in your free time, we can start to go over this. Some of the changes. And
And you may see Alyssa at our upcoming meetings. We're kind of trying to train her to become our expert on solar, centered at a lot of different sessions. And so she's a fine young planner, and she's kind of becoming our go-to for this. So on really hot nights, I won't be here.
I didn't expect you here tonight. I thought you were going to be down south.
I got enough fishing in Florida that I don't need to.
Okay. So anyway, there is so a number of things that she has put in here, and many of the things she and I had talked about, and so these are amendments that we can discuss. But I wanted to give them to you guys so that we can start to focus a little bit on these.
So I'm getting a little nervous, and by nervous, that's not the worst, but like, you have that really nice graph that includes the breakdown of the ordinance, the variety of concerns. It would just be helpful to have one tracking document.
And I can take this document and I can put it in that format, because like you said, I like that format too.
Okay, because then it's
Side by
like,
side.
we can check, we clicked off the layer, took care of glare, we took care of whatever,
Sure. But I received this today.
No, this is great, but.
So I could put that in that format, which I sort of, like you said, it side by side with the existing ordinance, and so that we can
And then,
see how it dovetails.
just for my tracking purposes and for our long-term kind of explanations of things. have your three-way. That's what I said you have. Yep. I don't have mine. I'm just wondering if I don't want to add too much to it. But under the comments now,
I'm just gonna take that column off. So-
well, I was thinking maybe include, notes or something along those lines.
Okay.
So I think, some of the stuff that we talked about tonight and the variety of different things that are coming up, that there's a explanation as we move forward. So if we decide, I'm just using glare, if we say glare is, well, it's handled in a different ordinance and we feel like it's covered in this ordinance. Therefore, the planning commission voted, I mean, so we track it, because we're not gonna, when I look at this ordinance, I feel like it's gonna have to be, we're gonna get down to debates of, that we don't agree on. So we're gonna have to take almost individual votes for individual items and amendments
Correct.
to this. So how we're tracking that, this I think would be a nice document with an explanation. So we call it, you know, in the legislature, you call it a no vote or a yes vote explanation.
Right.
But that there should be, you know, just that way the loop is closed.
Correct.
So instead of getting rid of comments, that we use that as something to track our actions.
I agree. So it is 4:08. We've been here an hour and 3/4. Anything else we want to talk about?
John, real quick, the changes on this that you had out, specifically where did that language come from? What was your recommendation?
Okay, the language, the ideas came from the, this document, which has all the suggestions from the public for amendments. And I've given this document to John and Lisa, and she then, like I said, we had a conversation, talked about numerous of the number of these different suggestions and amendments, and she then incorporated the language into the ordinance to
I can't say they're all there, but that's exactly right. So I haven't been able to catch up with Lisa on this, but that's right. It's that she tried to take the comments from the kind of the spreadsheet, add as many as she could. I'm not sure if they're all in there or not, but it starts to lay the groundwork.
So that's where the suggestions or additions or changes sort of evolved from. So as soon as we can get through the vision statement, then we can start to work on the orders. Which hopefully we sort of delay. In any case, so public comment time. Any comments? Yes.
Yeah, this is just food for thought, because when Rebecca was talking earlier, I was kind of, you know, what's in it for the township. I don't know if she was trying to look for a host community fee or something for a host community, like they do landfills. You know, they get $1 a ton or 50 cents a ton that comes in. When you dig a sand pit, they get $1/4 a ton for every sand, you know, or yard that goes out. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but it just came to my mind, maybe so much per kilowatt they produce, whatever, however it's done there, I don't know. And then another thing is very important, decommissioning. The decommissioning part of it's important because I demolished buildings for 35 years for a living. And we demolished many buildings for the municipality who got stuck with the GM plant, the Ford plant, the Chrysler plant, the retail facility, the mall, you name it, whatever went to bunk, all went, they thought they were, we'll give it back to the community, and they ran like heck. So we tore it down. Great for us, but not so good for the community. So the decommissioning is, you gotta have some real good teeth from it. And, with time frames and stuff, because a lot of this, and you see them all around, these GM plants sit for years and years and years and years, And then finally, maybe, Amazon took one up to whatever, which was great, but it's just an important point, I think, is the decommission. And then the last is the young planner there, if she has anything to add.
We don't want it.
She might have some good stuff.
She doesn't want any part of it.
Good Paw Patrol.
Thank you.
So, any other, yes, sir.
Is there anything in that paper you discussed about consolidation, keeping it all in one area?
There's not, sir, there's not.
No,
Can that be put in there?
Sure.
yes, we will be discussing it, yes. I mean, just, okay, like I said, she put in some of the amendments and language. We will be going over all of them, even the ones that aren't, that she didn't incorporate. Because I have a list of everything that you guys have provided me, suggest, I have kept copies of them, so I haven't thrown them out or whatever, I've read them all. And so we will be discussing them all. Now, if they're duplicates, we're not going to discuss all the duplicates, but so.
As long as you keep your opinion out of your.
Of course.
Your side.
Well, my opinion is only one of five, so. There's five of us. Yes, sir.
Sorry. Who was sitting there the last meeting and that chair? Do you remember?
I don't know his name.
Okay. So I just was wondering who he was and if he would come back or what, or who he invited. I mean, it's public, but I was just wondering.
I don't know who he was.
John,
Yes.
is it possible to get a copy of that and I can try to get it on the website so everybody can see?
The draft.
Yeah,
Well, my concern with that is, and again, no offense, this is nicely updated, but I mean, I'm looking at like some of these and I know that we got recommendations that range from 0 setbacks to 500 or 1,000 feet, and only one of them is represented here. Some of the recommendations such as consolidation aren't represented here at all, and this, it's like.
I think it's a little too early for that.
that's fine.
I think once we have.
This, I don't want the public to get the idea like this is some kind of working document that this commission has endorsed. This is just the current ordinance with a smattering of recommendations for procedure.
Even though it says draft on top, people basically, tend to grab it and run with it and say, hey, look, what they're doing. So yes, but eventually, when it gets a little more discussed and.
No, that's fine. I was just asked
Okay.
from online because they can't see what papers are and everything, if it could be shared, so I just
I mean,
asked.
I guess I would maybe have an alternative thought to that, in the full depth of transparency, that to John's point, that it's very clear that it's a draft, an initial kind of, moving forward. Just because, and then it's clear, I get the point, and yeah, it's not something that
Yeah.
we've gone through,
It's a
but
double-edged sword.
now that the website is a little more, or a lot more organized, and looks, I don't know if you had a chance, but.
Yeah,
that's-
a little bit,
it's pretty
yeah.
nice. So if there's kind of a running documents, that's pretty normal for cities and townships. I mean, there's draft ordinances all the time that are.
I guess it would just like he asked if that was in there, you know, I mean, we don't know, because, so it would
It's
just
just
help.
draft though, it's.
But it's not even our draft. The only thing that's ours in this is the original language, and there's been changes made to it that did not come from this commission.
Right.
I think we should be able, before we put it on the web, that we should at least be able to read through it at least once.
But even, I mean, yeah,
It's, you know, there might be, like you said, there's some things in there that we might all say, "Oh, this is not really what we want."
I would find it unusual to have a draft ordinance on the website. I don't think that's a good idea because this is gonna continually change. These are just some very early suggestions. There's been no talk of a public hearing. I mean, we are being transparent. These discussions are happening in public meetings. Residents are welcome to come here, but you know, I can see in 6 months where there's 8 different draft documents and you guys are like, well, we talked about that 4 months ago, we'll make these changes. So I would suggest not to put the draft text online until you're comfortable with it. And of course, it'll be online by law when you have a public hearing.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Yes, Sharon.
I was just wondering, it's really kind of nice when we can follow along though, if there was copies or anything like that, so that.
but there isn't anything in here that you haven't already seen. I mean, I personally feel uncomfortable with this because this is a draft of an ordinance that this commission is taking under consideration. And I never had discussion or voted for any of the new language. I'm uncomfortable with that. You know, I love I agree with you, Sharon, 100%. And plus, I think putting this on here, despite John's warnings, people are gonna read this and say, look, and think this is like the steps we've taken. These are the changes we have, you know, considered. And that may be true, but that is, from my initial survey of this, there are just some of the things that we're considering. Many things that we're considering have been omitted. I mean, this is not in any way, shape, or form.
How do you create the ordinance? I mean, if I don't write.
No, and I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, if I don't give you options, and I agree with what you're saying, and I understand your concerns because you got it tonight.
Yeah.
You know, my job is to take what I'm hearing, what you're telling me, incorporate it into the language, and maybe I put 2 or 3 different options to knock them out. But I mean, it's like making sausage, right? That's the only way we're gonna get to where we get is to give you a variety of options. So I want the residents to certainly be involved and I want these meetings to be transparent. But the only way we're gonna get to where I get is to give you guys options and you knock them apart and say, John, you're crazy, or yeah, we like that, but let's add this, and then we end up creating this ordinance. So it's the way that I've seen it work in other communities, because otherwise we're kind of bogged down. And again, your job, your 5 is to take this, mark it up and change it, and I'm working for you and I'm working for you guys, the residents too. So to give you that document that you're supportive of. But again, there may be several versions of this. And I'll do my best to keep you kind of updated on where we're at and not say, hey, this is the one, but I'm gonna give you my 2 cents on all.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I think, yes, Brian.
Oh, I was just gonna say thanks to, this is kind of a public thanks, but thanks to everybody, both residents and officials who were able to join the tour today. It was fun for our team. I think it was really educational and just for the record, thanks to the city of the pier and the DTE folks for hosting us. It was nice of them to set aside the time in the middle of the day to let folks walk around the solar farm and check it out. So the people who went found it valuable. I know I did. Just seeing their project up there, which is a little bit more established and 5 years old and a little bit different than what you might see today, since it's a little bit older. But it did give I think folks an opportunity to see something that's been in operation for a while. So that's my comment.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
That's where I was getting from. But that's why. Doing better? Ready to go for a 2 mile ride? Oh, no.